Hello, this is Lady X. Please like and subscribe, and my stories will thrive. Welcome to another video by the Blue Tongues of Hell for some more HYLDR Chronicles. This chapter is called Ghosts of Otarunai River. Kyōko cried out to the blinding white disk at the top of Mooncastle Well, but no one could hear her. In the dark, her two companions of misfortune moaned underwater, while no air bubbled out of their mouths. The circular stone brick walls had that familiar turquoise flicker to them. Kyōko's hands shimmered, and her damaged nails swayed like weeds in a gentle river flow. Despite a strange sensation of weightlessness, Kyōko couldn't climb any higher. But she soon realized that she hadn't been climbing at all, and wasn't even touching the damp walls. Kyōko rolled over and saw the pool of oil below, where the two Helheimers had fought a lost battle and drowned together. Their globulous green eyes stared upwards at her like bioluminescent fish, and Kyōko finally understood what had occurred. Now I am one of you, at last. Her troubles were over. Kyōko fled the light and dropped into the water, squirming with ghosts. Many autumns ago, in the land of the Ainu people, the foxtail millet harvest was almost finished. Although Otarunai was known for being a fishing village, at this time of the year, the population was primarily dedicated to farming, and everyone helped out in the fields. The summer had been exceptionally hot for this coastal region, on an island where the winters were harsh and the summers mildly warm. The millet crops had suffered, and most villagers were on edge, because it was common knowledge that their survival was intrinsically linked to the grain production. The cool temperature in early autumn was a welcome compensation for the hard work. Kyōko helped her grandmother in the fields, hopping around the millet plants with such light-hearted enthusiasm that her carefree attitude seemed to annoy the other farmers. With their sweaty bent backs and ragged wicker hats. The concerned farmers huffed and grunted as she skipped along with her short hair swishing around her neck. The young 6-year-old's main job was to carefully brush the grains with a stick to remove clinging water drops. And then her Oba-chan would use a sickle to cut off the foxtails. Others tied the millet into bundles, using long dried leaves, and Kyōko would carry a few over to her parents, busy hanging the millet out to dry on wooden racks. Her father, Oki, tossed bundles up to Kyoko's mother, Fusa, standing at the top of a ladder. Neither looked happy, but Kyōko didn't seem to notice. She ran back to her grandmother, Pokusa, waiting for Kyōko to tap the grains. A couple of middle-aged men snickered and held their noses as they walked past Pokusa. Kyōko couldn't understand how her Oba-chan could put up with these childish jokes related to her name. After all, the Pokusa wild plant perhaps was a smelly plant, but a popular one. Its garlic flavor always enriched a boring dish, and Kyōko told the two men as much, pointing out that her grandmother was not the one who stank of monkey faces. Kyōko had never been so rudely forthcoming, and Pokusa begged for the men's forgiveness. The smaller of the two men turned round and stroked his black beard. His nose was slightly bent, and his dark skin was as wrinkled as a ploughed field. He spat onto the floor and made a scene, insulting Pokusa and her granddaughter. Kyōko stamped her foot. The young girl didn't stop there and told the walking cesspits to go fishing. That even rotting yellowtail fish would be more pleasant than their disgusting stench. Pokusa gulped in horror. Kyoko's parents were too far to notice the kerfuffle and kept on hanging up millet bundles. The taller man, with bird-like features and baldness on the top of his oily head, pointed his sickle menacingly at Pokusa, yelling at her to keep her ugly macaque in order. Kyōko didn't often take this sort of insult to heart, because her parents had always told her that jealousy made other people mean. Some would despise her for her fine features. Some would try to take advantage of her. Nevertheless, when the shorter man kicked dirt into Pokusa's face as she grovelled before them, Kyōko shrieked and threw her stick at him. From the top of her ladder, Fusa heard her daughter scream. Both parents dropped what they were doing and ran towards the millet cutters on the other side of the field. Pokusa was sobbing, and the bearded man, named Pony, held his left eye with a bloody rag. She ran away, Sapo is chasing her, whimpered Bakusa, Fusa's mother. Which way? Shouted Oki. Fusa stayed behind to fish for information, then quickly followed her husband, leaving the one-eyed farmer and her whining mother behind. Red-faced macaques on Ezo spruce branches interrupted their mutual fur cleaning to observe humans running along a woodland path below. They snarled and flashed their sharp teeth, swinging down to lower boughs. Kyōko was running up that hill, cutting her arms and legs on the overgrown long grass, and only heard the red-faced man screaming and panting behind her. After a long hour's chase up the mountainside, Sapo caught his breath at the summit and leaned against a dead conifer tree on a stone ledge. He called out to Kyōko with attractive terms such as ugly runt or vile vixen, but to no effect. Kyōko hid inside an unoccupied fox den and heard Sapo's muffled voice trying to lure her out. It's all right, Kyōko-chan. I forgive you. I know you didn't mean to puncture upon his eye or bite my finger off, growled Sapo, scraping his sickle on volcanic rocks while searching for Kyōko near a cliff's edge. Let me bring you home to your parents. They must be worried sick. He peered over the edge and knew she couldn't have gone that way. All villagers knew this infamous spot when food was scarce and winter was near. An untold rule led many families to sacrifice the elderly in order to save the young. A senior relative would be invited to jump off this very same cliff, where Sapo had already stood when he pushed his father to his death. Some old-timers weren't always so cooperative, like Sapo's Oda-san, and they would have to be tied up and silenced before carrying them to the sacrificial grounds. Some didn't even bother to carry their unloved relatives to the top of the mountain and dumped them near an Ezo wolf den or into a river leading out to sea. Whatever the outcome, most farmers had this on their minds during the harvest season. And this year's results were going to be depressing. Sapo heard Oki and Fusa running up the steep path, crying their daughter's name, and he faced them with his sickle. They saw him on the edge and assumed the worst. "What have you done to our daughter?" cried Fusa, running towards Sapo to look down at the rocks below. "You pushed her, didn't you? Like your poor father. You did it!" screamed Fusa, trying to scratch Sapo's eyes out. I see why the ugly runt behaved so badly, laughed Sapo, grabbing Fusa's arms and causing him to drop the sickle that clattered down into the valley.
Oh, look what you made me do, Shikosho!
He bellowed and slapped her hard. Oki told him to let his wife go, but Sapo threatened to toss Fusa over the edge. Oki knew he wasn't bluffing. Regardless, he slowly closed in on the tall farmer. When Oki was in rake's distance, Sapo pretended to throw Fusa to her doom, and Oki dashed forwards. Instead of dropping Fusa, Sapo flung her backwards to the ground, and Oki tumbled over his wife and fell off the cliff. Kyōko's mother seemed to hardly notice her husband's death. She wept in silence, convinced her only daughter was dead. When Sapo grabbed her by the hair, exposing his ghastly black and yellow broken teeth with a surly smile, Fusa pounced at his neck and bit out his thyroid cartilage. There was a howl of wind, and the two farmers fell, cracked their bones on the bloody rocks below. The moon shone brightly that night. Foxes barked in the distance, and cicada choirs swarmed the forest. Kyōko heard her parents call her name, and she emerged from her hiding place. They were standing under a pale blue willow tree, holding hands. She cried, tears rolling down her cheeks. Both parents held out their hands and told their daughter to stop. Fusa said, "Mosume, you need to run home. Uchi is waiting for you. We need to rest here for a while."
All is back to normal.
added Oki.
Wipe your tears, my little lotus flower, and run to Bukusa. She has your favorite soup on the fire. Hurry up.
Kyōko wanted to ask why they didn't come with her, but they vanished into the shadows of the woods. A few weeks later, Kyōko's parents and Sapo were still missing. Everyone said they were dead. So Kyōko decided to go searching by herself along Otarunai River. The singing waters there slithered along a dell near the mountain where she had fled. Through sticky pine branches, she saw a couple of foxes drinking from the river. They must have caught her scent in the morning breeze. and suddenly scampered off along the pebbled shore. Kyōko adjusted her dress and decided to follow the two foxes. She spotted them upriver, skipping over smooth rocks with natural grace. And she hurried forwards, ignoring the yellow-striped spiders on huge webs blocking her away, and sleepy black snakes resting on warm stones. When she arrived near a waterfall and a wide cave entrance where sometimes she played, she felt an ominous foreboding. The villagers forbid their children to venture any further than this specific location for their own safety. Wolves were said to live further upstream. Bandits camped there too, and the ghosts of their victims haunted the entire valley. Kyōko drank from the fresh water, dripping from the cave ceiling, and felt a chill run down her spine. Fox barks echoed in the cave from up the river, and Kyōko bravely followed the sounds. The river was more of a stream now, and jagged rocks gradually replaced the lush foliage in the ravine. Kyōko looked up at the cliffs looming above her and recognized the ledge to where Sapo had chased her. Such a horrid man, and that big pony serves him right. Pony had asked for retribution for his lost eye and demanded half of Kyōko's family's share of millet. Without Oki or Fusa to back her up, Bakusa didn't know how she could refuse, especially with two adults less to feed. Climbing over cracked rocks on all fours, Kyōko swore she saw the foxes skip in front of her and jump over a large boulder. She skirted the obstacle, eager to catch another glimpse of the wonderful creatures. And she came face to face with the rotting corpses of her parents and Sapo. Their flesh had mostly been eaten away by scavengers, and insects of all kinds bustled all over their bodies. A large hornet shot out of one of her mother's eye sockets, carrying a stunned tarantula. Kyōko screamed. Oki and Fusa floated beside their lost physical shells and helplessly watched their poor child run away in tears.
One day she'll return,
said Oki to his dead wife. Show her where the sickle lies.
She'll cut your hair.
Kyōko woke from her distant childhood memories. Agitated souls were clinging to her legs as she sank further into Helheim's well's cold water. Others watched her with crazy lidless eyes while they floated in the dark. A weak current dragged Kyōko downwards until she arrived in front of a grill of rusty bars. She swam through and followed the flow. Apo, Akka, are you there? She whispered in the darkness. Uchi, Bokusa. Suddenly, Kyōko was back home in Otarunai. She was young again, in pain. She was bleeding between the legs as she stood in her Uchi's small paddy field. Her aunt Kyōko had introduced rice farming to the village, but it hadn't picked up yet. The rice shoots were only just sticking their heads out of the water, so it must have been springtime. It was late, and the farmers were in their huts. While Kyōko was cleaning away the blood and filth in the muddy water, she saw a dozen macaques playing near a neighbor's millet field. She could still smell the ugly slop all over her, but she chose to forget all her past troubles and strolled over to see what the little rascals were up to. She never thought she'd miss these red-faced demons. The macaques were squabbling over the carrion they had found in a field of tiny bells of ice. Snow in spring. Kyōko's grandmother lay prostrate in the mud on the outskirts of the macaques' woodland habitat. They would sometimes wander into the villages, pinch food and filch fruit from the trees, but they rarely were aggressive towards humans. They were never known to attack anyone, let alone kill someone. Kyōko had an awful sense of déjà vu. She screamed at the scavengers, waving arms erratically, and most of the macaques fled in all directions. Two males defied the young woman, and Kyōko didn't waver. She gave one a vicious kick that probably broke an arm, and they ran away. Bokusa was dead, though. Definitely eaten by macaques. But her skull had been smashed in. Monkeys didn't wield clubs or wooden swords. Kyōko erased from her mind the foul face of Bonnie, whom she suspected to be Bokusa's murderer, and she closed her eyes tight. She didn't want to think of that sweaty fat slob or relive this tragedy ever again, and gradually began to feel a cold wetness spreading all around her. It felt like being in an icy worm bath. When she opened her eyes, The Otarunai spring snow of where she had wanted to be most was gone. She was underwater again, entangled in reeds that she could feel between her fingers and thighs. Kyōko gasped for air and splashed about in the gloom. She pushed a net of lily pads out of the way and managed to climb her way out of what appeared to be another old well, but not the one she had fallen into. She could hear rushing water not too far away, and she found herself in the middle of a grove of crabapple trees in bloom. Kyōko noticed the trees didn't have a turquoise tingle. The moon wasn't trembling with sapphire energy. She was really there. She was also sick and tired, dead hungry, shivering cold, and exhausted. But she wasn't dead. Beyond the rope bridge that crossed the stream, slithering round a small islet where the well was hidden, Kyōko saw black clouds filling the sky over Vigrid plains. She still felt a slight pain in her abdomen and had already emptied the contents of her stomach several times. She wiped the bile from her lips and walked back to Helheim, focusing on every step so she didn't collapse. The white walls were right ahead, and she could hear no signs of warfare. A few more steps, and she would be home. The commotion in Odin's eye woke up a blonde man who was resting in an abandoned bear den. He saw a girl clamber out of the well, where he had nearly killed Asmund of Vanaheim, and he followed her over the rope bridge. When Kyōko collapsed, he ran to fetch his horse, still on the island. The man in baggy clothes picked Kyōko up and flopped her onto his ride. Once more, Edil and Kyōko were together again, riding back to Moon Castle. See you soon for the next chapter of the HYLDR Chronicles.